So, my name is Marin Niehues. First of all, of course, most important, thanks to all the sponsors. And there's a raffle going on, play some bingo, you can win some cool prizes. I didn't participate because taking them back in the airplane would be a hassle, but you absolutely should. So maybe 2 words about me. Hi, again, my name is Marin. I'm living, working, and everything in Germany. Western border in Düsseldorf, the good part of Germany. If you ever been to Germany, the west part is the best, a good one. East part is the bad one. So, I work as a consultant in organizational development and organizational architecture, meaning very German job, German engineering for company structures. Also, I have a small company called Stage Starter, helping experts also speak on conference stages and switching up the agendas of conferences a little bit. So today, we want to talk about Agile. Or not Agile, or you will see what we talk about. First, I will take you on a journey, though. You will now travel with me to Paul. This guy there is Paul, and Paul, he's a freelancer. Anyone self-employed here, freelancers here? Okay. But Paul is a freelancer, and as a freelancer, he does something, he delivers a valuable service to his clients, and he's solving a problem with this service. And the client is very happy about it, provides some feedback and money. So, oh, you're solving a problem, so you get money. Very simple transaction. And as long as Paul keeps solving this very particular problem, Paul gets contract extensions, therefore more money, therefore more whatever you want to buy with money. If he's German, it's cars. So, things were quite good. Paul was happy, clients were happy, and what do you do? If everything goes well, you scale. So Paul said, let's scale my business. And this is now Paul Software Incorporated. And Paul does hire some developers, right? Those developers develop the services and align amongst themselves. And of course, what do you do then? You also have to hire some people for marketing. They talk to Paul, to the developers, and among themselves. If you do marketing, eventually you also have to do sales. And the salespeople talk with Paul, with each other, with marketing, developers, and among themselves. So now we got a lot of people. We need some administrational stuff as well. The admin people, they, well, talk to the developers, they talk to Paul, they talk to marketing, to sales, and among themselves. Well, this is a lot of stuff going on right now. And what do we do if we need things to be organized? He hires a PMO. Now, this is where it goes downhill. A PMO has the job description of talking to literally everyone in the company for the whole time and making fancy roadmaps from it. And now we have a great structure. Also, let's hire some more developers. More developers means more code, means more value. Nobody disagrees, so that's concerning. Okay, no. Oh. That value kind of faded there. But we got fancy roadmaps. So things kind of became convoluted, delivery very inefficient. So what do? Paul, he studied economy, you know. So what does he do? Sets up a middle management. And that does look kind of this. So, oh no. This should be animated. I have to fire somebody in the back office, make an example from them. So, Paul is now the new CEO, and under Paul, there are several head of anything. Under the head of, there are the team leads, and then you got the teams. Right? It's nicely organized, isn't it? Also, if you want the slides in the end, there will be QR code. You can hit me up, you get the PDF. Those guys now start, of course, organizing themselves. So the teams have their dailies or weeklies, and they are talking with each other. And the team lead, the teams are talking with each other. The team leads to the heads off, then the team leads to each other, and the heads off with Paul and to each other, and some heads off talk to the developers directly. And also, Paul is a micromanager, so he talks to everyone, having great ideas after a round of golf with the business partners. Yeah, Paul quickly figured out this is not really efficient. So he's kind of desperate. That didn't work out, so he went looking for help. And we will accompany Paul now, go around with him, and in the end we find Emma. Emma is a Agile solution consultant at Very Agile Consulting. She's got a lot of certifications. Watch out for your wife and children. She got the PSPO, she got the PSM, she got the OKR, she got the Agile Coach, the SafeSig, the Nexus. She got the ITIL, she got the Systemic Coach, Prince 2, and a lot more, but it's just one slide, you know. Couldn't fit all the Miro certifications in there. Paul is impressed. So he says, you come with Very Agile Consulting, and you make me agile. So Emma comes and they start implementing Agile frameworks. They add Scrum Masters. But now those guys are not too happy. They also want Scrum Masters, but you don't do Scrum here, so they had Kanban Masters. Of course, you need product owners. And you need some release train engineers. And you know, at that point in time, just get a solution train engineer as well. And an Epic owner. And now Paul feels left out, so he gets a management consultant. Oh. So they now do Agile dailies. And the team does the Agile events. And this team is talking to the Scrum Master and product owner, and the product owners to each other, and the Scrum Masters to each other, and the Scrum Masters to the release train engineers, who are talking to the release train, to the solution train engineer, to the Epic owner, and of course to each other. And Paul's management consultant does the very same thing as Paul, micromanaging everyone they brought in. So now I have a little group activity. You will tell me what we haven't talked about in the last 3 minutes. Value, customer. But that's annoying, right? We were really, really caught up building this beautiful piece of art. Thinking about it, I never ever thought about putting this up in a contemporary museum of art, but I think it kind of should be, right? Okay. We forgot somebody, right? Clients. The client says, and that's not a quest marker, that's an exclamation mark for being dissatisfied. And the client says, well, in that case, forget about your contract extension. We find a freelancer. So Paul goes to Very Agile Consulting, and there's, you know, a 58-year-old guy sitting. Paul says, well, you destroyed my company. And the guy goes, no, but the metrics are great. Look, our teams tripled their velocity. Yeah, they just tripled every estimation. A 2 is now a 6. A 5 is now a 20. What you gonna do? More story points completed. But the average cycle time, so starting a story to finishing a story, is only 2 days. Yep, that's great, because a mail is considered a task. Coding is still 40 days in average. Yeah, okay, but the team has finished nearly every planned task. Yeah, but the definition of done doesn't include shipping to the customer. Kind of this. Paul sits down, talks to somebody who, you know, maybe is not too deep into the Agile rabbit hole that he is in right now, And this guy points out, well, Paul, I really like you, but 2 of your metrics are on a low. First, we got the net promoter score. So how useful is your product, or how useful is your product really perceived by your customer? This is very polarizing. If your net promoter score is ever at minus 52, close up shop. Find an investor, I don't know. And second, very important metric, and I bet you, and very, very rarely I ever heard an Agile coach, Scrum Master, anyone talk about it, revenue. I know it's hard to understand for a lot of Agile coaches, but there's something like earnings and revenue. Also went down. Clients are canceling contracts. Paul now has to lay people off, and he stands in his bathroom before he goes to bed, looks in the mirror and says, but we are Agile now. What went wrong? And I will tell you what went wrong, because else it would be kind of not too funny now getting you out of the room with that story. Emma brought some Scrum. She brought Kanban, she brought Safe, but she forgot about the customer. And this is not what Agile really means. So if your Agile transformation really is so great, ask yourself some questions. Why are customers leaving? Why does your team hate Scrum? If you did Scrum right, nobody should hate it because it's delivering a value. Why does nobody trust the roadmap? And why are you still late? Because very few people really understand what Agile was supposed to be. So let's get into the definition of Agile with this nice breaker slide. Anyone here ever heard of the Agile Manifesto? Who read it from those people? Okay. Now the different question. Who did Scrum Kanban or was told that they are working now Agile, but never got shown the Agile Manifesto? Yeah, too many people. The Agile Manifesto says 4 things. First, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Doesn't mean processes and tools are not important. It means individuals and interaction are more important. Secondly, working products over comprehensive documentation. Thirdly, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Fourth, responding to change over following a plan. So if you do this, you are baseline Agile. I don't care if you do with Scrum, with Prince, with standing in a circle and making it work. If you do this, you have the baseline of agility. Now we can break down those 4 sentences into 12 principles given to us by the Agile Manifesto, and I will go through them quite quickly. Very first principle, satisfy your customer. It's the most important thing. Everything you do, every penny you got in your pocket, every penny a company has on their bank account is because a customer paid for a problem solution. Nothing else. No customer ever paid for you becoming Agile or implement a feature they never use. And this is not only on the level towards your customers, but you are also a customer. Think about it. When you buy a product, why are you buying the product? Because it's Agile? No, you buy it because you have a need, a certain demand, and you want to satisfy that need on demand with purchasing this product. Secondly, embrace change. If stuff doesn't work, you have to change eventually. Deliver frequently, collaborate with business. This is written from a developer point of view. If it would have been written from a business point of view, it should say collaborate with with the IT. 5th point, build the right environment and trust. 6th point, communicate directly. Doesn't mean always in the office, but face to face. Call people. Don't be afraid, or text them directly, but don't do it via memos or meeting minutes you send them unsolicited. Working products as the main KPI. And I really like that one because often we are talking about KPIs and then you get this dashboard with 180 numbers and the product is still sitting somewhere in dev test. Work in a sustainable pace. Attention to quality. Keep it simple. Let people self-organize. And 12th, reflect on how to become more effective. Those are the 12 principles. If you ever want to become agile and you don't do this, you are not agile. You maybe do follow a framework, but you are not agile under any means. So, frameworks, and this is important. I'm not saying frameworks are shit per se, but you need to understand what frameworks should do. Frameworks now try to operationalize those principles. I animated that myself, watch out. Second exhibit for our Contemporary Museum of Art. So those are our 12 principles here. And now Scrum takes them, you saw that? Yeah. Scrum takes them and puts them into different events, right? 2 of our principles we do with the daily. Let's keep on track. Another 4 we try with the review. Let's do it for the customer. Satisfy him, working products. Planning means let's adapt to the market. And our retro means let's push ourselves. A lot of people of you worked in some capability agile. Who here felt that the retro was a good feel-good circle? Like where you talked, but you didn't act on stuff. Some people, yeah, some people, that's a thing that happens very often. From interest, and I really hope nobody puts up their hand, who here has a retrospective where a line manager or any superior person is also joining and watching what you are saying? Oh, there are hands. Okay. There's the thing with all this frameworks. If you do it, you quickly get a full sense of doing it right. You just check the box. I'm meeting every day, so I'm doing a daily. I sit together every 2 weeks to 4 weeks for 2 hours, so I do a planning. So this is what I call checkbox agile, where you just check the boxes of technically doing the framework. But again, we just talked about what agile means, and that has nothing to do with checking off boxes. And third point, means to a means. So if you do a framework just to do the framework, you use a tool just to use the tool. It's like you wanting to build a house, but you really you want to use a hammer to get a window in. And then I can come around and be like, are you sure that hammering glass is getting the window in? You're like, no, but I want to use a hammer. I paid a lot of money for the hammer. So what happens? Instead of the daily being, let's keep on track, it goes, okay, we meet every morning. Instead of the review being, let's do it for the customer, we say, yeah, we just roll out and demo every 4 weeks, no matter what. Instead of us in the planning adapting to the market, we just go to the next milestone planning. Oh, sprint planning, sorry, wrong word. And instead of in the retro pushing ourselves, we sit together and say something like, oh, well, let's make a feel-good circle. Let's sit together and talk for an hour, have funny, a sailboat retro, or parachute retro, racing car retro. If you go to Miro, a lot of people here probably know Miro. Miro has like this template library. It's called Miroverse, like universe, but Miro, which is kind of depressing. But if you just enter retro there, you will find over 8,000 funny picture retros, all answering the same 3 questions. What are you happy about? What are you sad about? What does annoy you right now? In my opinion, if you really want to push a team, you have to ask questions that are contextually anchored within the current situation of the team. If I just come around every 4 weeks, are you happy right now? You're like, yeah, okay, let's continue. You won't get into what really pushes you in your specific context. Technically, you do Scrum, but what is left of agility, of the 12 principles here? So whenever clients approach me, and I'm in organizational architecture, so I build whatever organization works to deliver, and they really want to do Agile, I start, okay, if you want to fix stuff, start with principles and not with a framework. And please start with those 4. 12 principles, you remember them hopefully. Start satisfying your customer, start collaborating, start building in the right environment, and have working products. Those are my main 4 from the last years. Everything is important, but you can't reflect on how to become more effective if you don't even have a working product satisfying a customer. Because effective means you are doing the right thing. So in reality, let's go through those 4 and I show you some ideas on how to do this in your company. Doesn't mean you can just go copy-paste it, but it means there are methods to achieve that. Let's talk about principle 1 first, satisfying the customer. In the Agile Manifesto, now I have to read from the slide, it says, our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. So what Paul did in the beginning. How? Your products must solve a real problem and not just exist. I will show you a method in a second that you can achieve through something called value proposition canvas and personas. Secondly, validate your hypothesis first and also fast. So build MVPs, iterate, test them. Don't work on something for 4 years, push it to the market and then be like, oh, I didn't know nobody wanted that. Yeah, you could have found out way earlier. Thirdly, frequently release, and done doesn't mean delivered. If something is done on test but not delivered to the customer, for your customer, it doesn't exist. It's just not there. So if your mobile phone today would break due to a software bug, and you would call, let's say, Samsung. You got a Samsung. You call the Samsung support, and they're like, yeah, we have a fix for that. And you're like, yeah, great. Can you, drop it over, I don't know what. And they're like, yeah, no, we got a fix, but it will only release in 8 months. Do you feel like they have a fix for that? Or do you feel like they have a fix for that in 8 months? Right? Examples for this could also be alpha product testing. A lot of us probably play video games. I'm so bold to take that assumption in this kind of conferences. Public playtesting is a very, very famous thing to do. I think there are very little MMORPGs that came out without public playtesting. Why is that? Because they are unbelievably expensive, and once it's released, you can't just rebuild the whole game. And if you have hardware products, you can also hand off product samples. I think even when I was in the US, I went into Costco or something, and it was like the whole line was only product samples of people giving me like cheese and drinks, and they really tested. First, I just talked about a persona. If you want to validate a product, you need to know who you are selling it to. For that, we use something called a persona, which is a prototype user to tailor our approach and to create an understanding. Quick look on the time. All right. This is a persona, and you ask questions like, what is the personality? Who is this person being influenced by? What are the goals, the needs, the pain points, the interests? And you even give the person a name and age. I have another talk I give every now and then. You can actually use this to build AI customer clones with that, but that goes a little bit too far. But here is your baseline assumption of who you are building stuff for. Because we all have different motivations purchasing a product and opening our purse for somebody else to take money from it. This you can combine with the so-called business model canvas. I hope some of you heard it maybe. Great, I saw a hand, that's good. Business model canvas you use to analyze the market, focus on what's sellable, and outline your product. Looks a little bit like this. In general, just one recommendation from my side. Those strategizer guys who this is coming from are really great with all sorts of these high-level getting stuff outlined and together. All right, so you see what is my cost structure, what is my revenue streams, which channels am I shipping through, which customer segments, what's my core value proposition, and so on. And now you can combine our person and our business with something we call business value proposition canvas, VPC. It looks like that. And this is really easy now. Here's the person I just built, persona. Here's the business I just built, business model canvas. And this is where it makes caching. Very easy. Person needs something, has jobs, gains, pains, and I have pain relievers, gain creators, and a service to offer. And in the middle we meet they give me money for my problems to be solved. One best practice, as I said, could be digital twins. I just brought one example. I have an internal tool I built and use myself. For example, here is how I chat with them, right? They have pain points, and I have group chats with them, and I can ask them opinions of the others, and I can upload pictures and UI interfaces, and they give me live feedback based on the personas. Could be one thing on how to get there. But as I said, this is all just ideas on how to get to the principles behind it. Now I have to calculate. We started. No. Okay. So, principle 4. Well, second principle, but generally speaking, principle 4 of the Agile Manifesto, meaning collaboration with business. Now here I have to read again. The Agile Manifesto says, business people and developers must work daily throughout the project. How? Structured communication is key to that. Cultivate T-shaped professionals. We come in a second to T-shape. Anyone heard of T-shape before? Yes, you are really knowledgeable here. I like that. And focus on end-to-end delivery. So don't silo your teams. If you have a team backend 1, backend 2, frontend 1, frontend 2, then maybe you have an ops team, a DevOps team, and a business team, and nobody is having one product, but every team is having all the products at once. That is a very, very bad organizational design. T profiles mean, well, if you make a T with your arms, you see you spread out. And T profiles mean you are cross-functional, you can deliver end-to-end, and you have a certain product mastery. It looks like that. We have something we call I profiles. And this is our deep knowledge. The I going down is our deep knowledge. And the bar from the T going to the sides is our shallow knowledge, our general knowledge. But also those are the connection points to the other T's. A real T profile looks something like that. It's not like you know one thing and the rest you are kind of borderline stupid in. You can do several things differently well. Maybe here we have a really great QA master who's also good with a bit of coding, knows some Scrum basics, and has some DevOps knowledge, but very little, but general fiscal knowledge and PO knowledge or communication knowledge. Could be some stuff. Thing is, if everyone is coming around with their T, we're in a huge advantage. Because if we see end-to-end delivery, meaning here is technology and here is business, and everyone is having this I profile without points to dog on, looks a little bit like this. Having small gaps throughout the whole communication with our team. If we have T's, it looks like this, hopefully. Now, if you're really picky, and if I give this talk in Germany, they're always like, yeah, but there are really small gaps between the T. Yes, that's PowerPoint. But we are not in Germany though, right? Nice. So, this means you can deliver end-to-end. End-to-end meaning from the ideation of a new feature, from the identification of a problem that needs solving to the delivery to the customer, not saying to building the code, but the delivery to the customer. From me approaching somebody being like, I really want to do, I don't know, maybe I call Tinder and I'll be like, I really want to have a Netflix integration so the girls can see what Netflix series I binge. To this feature being implemented and usable by me, all that in one team that we would call a cross-functional end-to-end delivery team. And this is what we normally want, ideally, because we want a team to have knowledge and adoption points throughout their whole life cycle. We don't want handovers between departments. Because once we hand over something within another department, we have new ownerships, we have new political claims, we have a new head of something claiming this as his child now. So we want a team to be able to work on their ideas and their problem solutions. Also meaning build it, ship it, run it, of course. Direct communication and ideas can lead to action. Nothing is worse than having an idea but never being able to work on it. Or coding some lines of code just to push it to another team and never ever see your code again, or the feature you built with the code, or anything. Bringing me to principle 5. the right environment. And this is a really tricky one, because I can give you a million methods on how to build the right environment, but still 90% of companies fail. Because building the right environment is very little about methods, but the will of people to actually work together in a non-egocentric way. And there's a thing called middle management, which inherently often is a blocker for a lot of stuff. I have to be honest about that. I worked myself there, but often they try to accumulate power, but you will see that doesn't work. The Agile Manifesto says, build projects around motivated individuals, give them the environment and support they need, and trust them to get the job done. I'll say a couple more words to the last sentence in a second. How you do that? Foster psychological safety. And this is such a fluffy word. And me, as a German, I hate fluffy words, but I don't know how to say it better. Because we all sat in a meeting at one point in time where people were like, oh yes, you can just say whatever, we are so constructive and feedback is so well received. And then you're like, okay, here's my feedback. And they say, leave the room. I hate you now. Or we all had junior developers approach someone and be like, yeah, can you have a look at my code? I think it's not ideal yet. And instead of the senior developer being like, oh yeah, let's huddle up together, let's build it, and I can show you how to do it better next time. I had a lot of developers who like, yeah, that's real shit, you should do it better next time, and then they left the room. Psychological safety, right? Do you think this junior guy will ask a second time to get help? No, he will ask ChatGPT now. Empower teams to take ownership. I work a lot with C-level, and my biggest clients are around 180,000 employees. And my smaller ones are around 300 to 500. Work a lot with C-level. Never ever have I not hear a C-level go, our people are so lazy, they don't want to own their work. At the very same time, they can't even decide about a 50 euro expense for a license. Third, define clear boundaries while granting autonomy in those boundaries. And that's my best practice, really. If you want people to act their jobs, give them a boundary and say, okay, within those boundaries, you can do whatever you want and I won't interfere. Past that boundaries to protect myself and yourself, I will have to interfere. For one example could be, I had one client, they were producing heat pumps, like these heating solution thingies, can also cool, I think, right? Yeah, they're producing heat pumps, and the team hired everyone themselves. The team lead hasn't made a single hiring decision for 4 years, because he said, your autonomy is to build this team yourself. They had full control over the R&D budget, the educational budget, and the hiring. But they also had clear boundaries on when they couldn't decide. When I I was head of software development for a while and also head of consulting for a longer time. The first time I ever got to lead a person, I called up my very first boss. He was great. And I asked him, if you only have one trick, one best practice, one piece of knowledge to share, what would it be? And he said, be clear about how far people can go and when they need to stop to go alone. Because if you don't tell people and you expect from people, you will be disappointed, they will be disappointed, everyone's disappointed, you got a bad day altogether. Only clear expectation management can prevent that. Fourth, treat employees as experts, not subordinates. And I always like to say, if you are the head of something, and you feel like you could do the job better than anyone in your team, anyone you hired, it's two options. Either you are really shit at hiring people, or you are really shit at being a leader. Because either you hired the wrong people, or you were a better developer than you were a leader. One example could be team managers on R&D budget, I like that, or communication follows an intent-based leadership. For example, in my company, I think I never gave away a task but to a junior when they need some orientation. But If I hire a professional, a senior, I never tell them, write this mail or write this code or publish this. I go to them and I say, okay, listen, those are our goals with the company. What you want to own? And then we find an agreement, what goals he does own, and he is totally free to act within his capabilities to achieve those goals. And I don't care if he writes a mail at 1 a.m. to a certain, I don't know, service provider or something. I care that he get the goals done. If he needs help, he can approach me at any time. Psychological safety. But I don't want to give out tasks, because right now I have four and a half people. But if I have 50 people at some point in time and I have to write task lists for 50 people, I got a small problem on my hand. And the manager should be available for guidance but avoid micromanagement. Just talked about that. Principle 5, sorry, the 3 methods I want to talk about is a team charter, trusting experts to deliver, and radical candor. Real quick, team charter, it's just a small document where you whip up what is our mission, what is our scope, who is this team made up from, how do we communicate, and what do we expect from each other, with a very stark emphasis on the last point and the first point. So what does success look like for this team? So everyone knows if this is done, we all done a good job, and we together can work towards this goal. And the last point, what do we expect from each other? And this is vastly different for a lot of teams. Do we expect each other to be proactive about feedback, or do we expect each other to ask if others want feedback? Do we expect each other to be in focus times, for example, half a day every day? To work at my best, I expect others to leave me alone for half a day so I can do actual work. Could be one expectation. Then I have a little something for all the leadership in here. That's called delegation poker. Anyone heard of that? Even here's a hand. That's wild. That's really rare. Delegation poker basically gives you as a leader a framework from 1 to 7, how much you want to involve people. 1 means I go tell you. This is mostly firing people. I come in and I tell you, this is done that way, you don't get anything to say. Don't even answer me, it's just like that. 2 means I'm gonna sell it to them. You know how getting rid of the free soft drinks in the fridge, you need to sell it to people. Soft drinks are bad for your health, don't you think so? 3rd is you consult with people. So you ask them, what would you do if you were me? And then you get to decide. 4th is actually putting them on par, agreeing with them on stuff. 5th is advice. So they take the decision, but you advise them what you would do. 6th is inquire. So you go do the decision. In the end, please tell me what you did. This is where I try to be mostly, if I can manage it somehow and it's not too expensive of a decision. And the last one is delegate, meaning I don't care, just do it. Don't even tell me about it. So I'm gonna maybe pump up the speed here for a sec. Principle 5 is radical candor, and radical candor tries to be a feedback framework where you find common ground, build trust with the common ground, set boundaries for the future, give feedback, and give appreciation. Looks a little bit like this. You have those 2 axes. Either you're silent or you challenge. You care about emotions or you don't care about emotions. And if you care about emotions, but you don't say anything, it's empathy, but it ruins you. If you are silent about things and you don't care about anyone, well, it's just insincere and kind of manipulative. Yeah, you get the word. So if you challenge stuff directly and you don't care about emotion, well, that's aggression and kind of obnoxious. And if you care about emotions of others, doesn't mean you're really empathetic. It's just you think about what others feel if you say it, and you speak openly. This is thought to be radical candor. Last principle I want to talk about, and I hope then I'm also finishing up kind of in time, working products as the main KPI. And again, you get the slides in the end, so if I cut 1 or 2 slides short, please don't be too mad. But principle 7 says, working software is a primary measure of progress. Very simple. For me, this should be the second principle after satisfy your customer, really. But okay. How? Ensure your product is usable, not just a concept. Ensure it's stable. Solve a real problem. Example could be a minimal viable feature, so you try out features before. It could be the focus on delivery, or it could be hard. Now, nobody heard of hard. Ha! That would be a first, actually. Hard is a framework used by Google to measure whether a product is viable for the market and solving real problems or not. And it basically says, how happy are people? How engaged are they with our product? How well do they adapt to our product? How is the retention of users already in there? And how successful are they solving their own tasks with our product, solving problems? Happiness means users find our app helpful, for example. The signal could be 5-star reviews, surveys, feedback, and the metrics could be the Net Promoter Score we talked about in the very beginning. The E means engagement, meaning users keep engaged, maybe in a daily event, in a daily collect the jewels to get free premium currency, I don't know. The signals are something like they're spending more time in-app, they're coming back every day. And the metrics could be session length, session frequency, numbers of sessions could also be a valid metric. A means adoption, so users see the value, downloading the app, signing up for an account, trying out a new feature after rollout. R means retention, meaning users can keep coming back, staying active. There, the churn rate would be very important. And T means task success, meaning users complete their own goals quickly and easily. So, this slide is for you later to look at. If you want the slides, you have like this fancy little thing here. Thing is, and I'm so sorry in the direction of the organizers, I will overdraw by a minute or two. I know punctuality is also not being late, but yeah. All right. So structure and dysfunction means structured dysfunction. If those principles do not work, normally you have something like this. You have your principles, you have structure, tools, processes, and then you have products. But if this is faulty, this all becomes faulty as well. So what you want to do is choosing the right structure for your function. And we are skipping to the fancy picture part, the Stacy matrix. This is a very rough guideline on which framework is working for which need you have. So if you have known technologies and known requirements, you can just use waterfall. You stand at a conveyor belt doing car parts. You don't need rocket science for that. But if you do rocket science, so unknown technologies, unknown requirements, you want something like lean startup, you want to do design thinking. All right, so I'm over time. This is why I'm giving my synopsis right now. Finishing up, it's not about doing Scrum or an Agile framework. It's about this. All along was about this. And if that doesn't work, this will not help you. This will. Starting with those 4. And if you only take one thing from this, and now, guys, you have to put Candy Crush away for another 10 seconds. If it's not solving a problem, stop building it. If it's not delivered, it doesn't exist. If leadership doesn't know why, frameworks won't help you. Customers don't care if you use Scrum. They care if it works, because it was never about frameworks. It was always about the problems we solve to our customers. And if you are sitting here thinking, that was nice, but my manager's still a dick, and he still doesn't know that, scan the QR code. I do a one-on-one on him. I'm a dangerous German. Thank you guys so much for staying with me.